Case study, an attendance problem. A little organization, please. In this case study, we essentially have a problem with rampant absenteeism in a high school. The student population being over 950 students, with over 690 of those students having more than 10 absences in the first semester alone. That to me sounds like we have a serious disregard for actually being present in school to be able to learn anything. The district and state policies state that you have to be in school a vast majority of the time. The district says you are allowed 5 unexcused absences, and after that point, you are truant. The absences that count for excused are only illness, death in the family, that is the immediate family, inclement weather, meaning you cannot safely get to school because of the weather, or as excused specifically by the principal. Now, let's talk about a few of the problems that occurred before we get into the specific cases. One, it appears that pretty much any teacher or anyone who works at the school can excuse the absence. Now, part of this could be because the grading program is specifically set up so that all of those options are available to the teachers when taking attendance, and therefore they can simply mark it as an excused absence whenever they're taking attendance in school. Now, the next issue that came up was that personal reasons seem to take more precedence than the actual policy set forward by the district as aligned to the state law. And part of this is because there have been no standards set for how the school and the employees are supposed to treat the problem. Meaning there isn't a system in place, so it's pretty much up to whoever is taking the attendance, their personal opinions on the matter, blah, 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 blah. A solution. Well, first, you have to define the chain of command with staff. In other words, create a system. For instance, staff have 2 options. You either mark the student present or you mark them absent. If they are absent, then it is up to the office and the attendance counselors and the principal to decide whether or not that absence is excused or unexcused. Specifically, if they are absent because they are in a extracurricular activity, for example, a football game that has to play at a different school, and so they are missing several classes in the afternoon in order to travel, that would be excused. And that list would be in the office. And the office can pre-mark those absences because they know when the students are actually dismissed, and therefore when the excused absence would kick in. They could actually pre-mark that in the attendance record. 2, any excused absences outside of that need to be going through the principal, meaning that the student has to be submitting the request to be absent prior to them actually being absent. Now, obviously, in some of these cases, that was happening. However, the request was not coming to the principal. It was going through the homeroom teacher. It was going through the guidance counselor. It was going through the athletic director. So, what would the result be? Well, obviously, the result would be, or the desired result would be, that there would be less absences simply because they would have to go through the process in order to be absent, thereby justifying the absence, or it would become an excused absence and a truancy problem, which obviously in some of these cases it's going to become a truancy problem, and there will be the civil authorities involved because it will become a violation of the state law. So, how would you set this up with teachers? Well, first, you have a meeting with the teachers and you set down the new expectations as far as the building is concerned. One, you are to mark any student that is not present absent. Those absences at the beginning of the day or whatever that are not excused will then be checked out or verified, meaning calls home, that will be handled by the office, specifically the counselors, secretary, principals, so forth. 2, whenever you then, after the teachers understand, you make for sure that you get the information to the parents and the students that if they have to be absent, it needs to be pre-approved through the office. And preferably the homework that needs to be done, any schoolwork, will be made up before the actual absence occurs. That way, the student will not be falling behind on their schoolwork if they're going on a business trip with the parents to a different country or to a different city for whatever reason. Yes, I do understand. Those can be very educational, but that does not trump the importance of being in school and working on the academic subjects of your choice towards graduation. Now, in relation to those specific students that were referred to, Karen, the young woman who decided to get married, personal opinions aside, obviously this needs a little further investigation, and I would want it referred to social services because there are many additional resources that could help a young parent that they will not know about and they will not have access to unless they are referred. Now, Tyrone, the young individual who likes to go off on trips with his parents who are going for different business related purposes. Again, a nice conference with the parents explaining that you are not opposed to these trips. You need to be informed of them further in advance, and he needs to be getting his schoolwork done ahead of time whenever these are going to be occurring. Also, there are testing parameters and so forth that need to be taken into consideration because we do have to, and they do have to, take the standardized tests and so forth like all the other students. And if these trips would coincide with one of those dates, that would be a problem. Now, Christina, the young woman who was getting excused absences with a form letter sent in, signed by her minister. Obviously a very religious individual, nothing wrong with that. The important issue here is that she needs, again, to make for sure that all of the work is being done ahead of time and that the grades are not being affected and her learning is not being affected by these consistent absences. I have absolutely no issue with a student's right to practice their own religion on their own time. However, they are not yet a full adult and therefore do not have the full rights of an adult. The parents need to be made aware of this, and the minister needs to be made aware that the request must come from the parents, not from him. I am more than willing to accept his letters in conjunction, but again, the request must come from the parents. And there's also a safety issue on this one as well. Now, Carl, the young individual who has an issue with being at school in the first place, and obviously this is being propagated by his father, who is more than willing to get into a knockdown fight over the issue physically, and is prepared for some kind of civil action. Again, I think this one is requiring a referral to social services, the juvenile division of the civil authority. Now, John, the aspiring quarterback who is getting excused by the athletic director. Now, obviously, this guy is well connected and well liked in the community. However, this missing of the afternoon classes 3 days a week, that means that he's only seeing those teachers twice a week. You cannot tell me that his grades are not being affected, that his learning is not being affected by this. I think, obviously, a conference with the parents showing true concern that he continue to get better, yes, but that he also maintain a high academic standing, which will help him with scholarships later, as he is an aspiring quarterback and obviously quite good if he's already into the quarterback position and he's not even a senior yet. This could become a significant drawback for him in going to the school of his choice if his grades and if his learning is hampered by this. I would also have a pleasant but stern conversation with the athletic director, pointing out the obvious. These needed to run by me before you started just excusing them. Absences need to run through the principal. That's district policy. Okay, just make for sure that you're doing that. Now, how do we deal with the bigger problem, which is obviously the 690 plus additional absences? Well, obviously, we need to institute some kind of a reward system or some kind of an incentive to encourage the students to be present, because, and as recent data has shown, students who are not in class don't gain as much as those who are in class. So, for example, one could be perfect attendance gets a pass on the finals, meaning you don't have to take your final if you haven't missed a single day, unexcused. Or perhaps a good attendance field trip, meaning those students that have 5 or less absences the entire year get to go on a educational / fun trip at the